So we're getting a little off track here. So if we're trying to make an algorithm that optimizes how people learn, what are we trying to do in English? So what is the thing that helps people optimize their learning? So if I said, I'll give you an example. What's 2 plus 2? What is a arrow function in JavaScript?
The thing you showed me before?
Yes.
It's an abbreviated version of how to initialize a function.
Awesome. What's 2 plus 2?
4.
Great. What is scoping in JavaScript?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, fine. What's 2 plus 2?
4.
Why did I just repeat the same flashcard 3 times that you already know? That you already know. There's your hint.
Because I already know it? I don't understand.
Why am I showing you something that you already know?
To reinforce it?
Okay, we can do that. But how much reinforcement do you need of 2 plus 2?
Oh. We teach him something. So let's say at the start, hey, you learned this, and now we're going to. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. So let's just say that there's 10 things that they need to learn. They have 4 weeks. So now what we would do, let's just say 8 things. Now what we would do is we would do 2 things for the first week, and then what we can do is on the next week we can set it up so that we give them 3, but we alternate one of every other day. We alternate that one that they learned the previous week.
Okay.
So we still make sure that they remember it while still giving them enough information to learn, or still giving them information to learn new things. Is that kind of where you're going with that, or am I just?
I mean, no, it wasn't, but it is an idea, and I like where you're going.
Okay.
So, let's give, oh, what's up?
I believe what you're trying to say is that we're getting back to the point where we already know, and then we're going to start again, or like, because you gave him a question which he doesn't know, and when you're going back to a point where he knows. So it's like, so in progression, if you need to progress, you need to know already all the stuff. That's what you're trying to say.
Oh,
the opposite way. So, so if you're studying for a test, right, and there's things that you already know, why am I showing you those? Right?
Because those are needed to study for the other.
But if you already know them and you're walking around with that knowledge completely memorized, and no matter what, you already know it, why am I showing you those? So over time, you might forget it, but we have a general idea how long that is, and it's on a timetable of months, not days. So once you already know it, then you need to be shown it occasionally. But typically, what ends up happening when we're talking about learning is that people, if they know it immediately. So we can base that on time. How long did it take you to answer it? If it's less than 5 seconds, you probably got it. So we can put that into like a week later, you'll see it again. And then if after that week, it took you longer to answer it because you started to forget, then you'll see it more. You'll see it in 3 days.
So it's time. So it's basically how we're going to measure their progress is based off of how long it takes them to answer it. Or at least part of it.
That's one factor. So another factor that we can bring in is number of words as well, because the longer it takes you to read, the longer it's going to take you to answer. So we can't just have it took you longer than 5 seconds, or we're going to show you this thing, it just takes you a long time to read over and over again. So that's one thing that we can go through. And then another factor is going to be level of difficulty as well. So if we sit here and talk about spanning tree, and you have to think about it and go, okay, it would go here, then here, but not here, and then not here. So it has to be this one. It's going to take you longer to think about it. So maybe level difficulty is appropriate here. So we're already up to 3 variables.
Okay.
And then we have to figure out how to weight them because it's probably not equal. Okay? So that's a primary feature. Okay? This is what real software is like. You're representing reality with code. Okay, so let's put this in here. No spell check? That's definitely wrong. Time? Is it? Difficulty? Okay. Time, difficulty, and then, yeah. Okay. Oh.
How about like how people? Like, some people are more visual. Some people need to like listen to questions.
Well,
That's a different feature. Well, we can talk about that here in just a second. Okay, so we have this feature. We need to get back to the use case because we can get really off the rails if we don't define what we're trying to do. So we're targeting, well, I haven't forgot, Sarah, we'll come back to it. So we're trying to define exactly what we're trying to do with this project. We're trying to make a better Kahoot. What doesn't Kahoot do very well? And what can we make better?
Personally, I've actually never used Kahoot.
Yes, you have.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't let you choose again after you choose just one thing?
Okay. Small feature, but what's up?
Doesn't keep track of like user data, like what they do.
That's a big one. Okay, so we want to track user data under what scope? What time frame? Four years, the entire duration of your schooling academic?
What do you want to just do a couple months? Because isn't it just per course? We want to do a course?
You could.
Would it be context dependent?
Context on what?
Context on the deadline and what you have to learn?
What are you trying to solve? Yeah, that's why we do
So
this.
we gotta answer the use case before we answer essentially what's happening here. So,
How about this? I will say what my vision was,
okay.
and then we will try to come up with features that help it.
Okay.
What we're trying to accomplish with this project is that we can track user data in terms of the student themselves, and then students as a generic concept over time. So 10 years after you have graduated, we still want your user data based on how you progressed throughout the curriculum. And then we will have a series of topics that go, students always struggle with arrays. We need to focus more on arrays. Maybe we can have a couple more projects on arrays.
Interesting. Well, that's a lot of math. That's going to be a lot of...
Yeah. Again, welcome back to real software.
I can see. Okay. Yeah. That's actually a pretty cool idea, though.
Okay. So that's what my vision of this was, is, okay, we want data over a long period of time to define where we are going wrong, what we are not focusing on enough. Because there's a lot of people walking through here right now that still don't understand relative pathing. That's a 1023 topic. Right? There's a lot of people walking through these halls right now that don't understand the value of file structure because they've had search their entire life. Right? Those are the things that we have to get better at, because when I was growing up and I had a computer, when it was still Windows XP, there was no search. You had to remember where your files were.
One of the best ones.
Not from a security standpoint. Right? So that is what this software should highlight. Because, okay, here's all of our topics. Here's what we think are important. And then over time, we're going to see a dip in students' ability to understand things because we're not focusing on it enough. Because between someone like Spear and I that have used it in our entire life, we can just go, here's a thing, it's important. You probably used it for like the last 15 years, And then that suddenly becomes not true because of something that we haven't considered. And this data should highlight that.
So is it going to be like self-learning? Essentially, I'm not saying it's going to be AI.
That'd be a feature.
I should have caught the last bit of my lecture from Web Programming 1 talking about how you can consider Web 3.0. Okay, so you've got the web, and then there's always been Web 2.0, which is basically making applications within the internet, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Web 3.0 is making basically cross-platform applications, the web being a more so a platform that you can connect to. So ideally, the way like how I keep calling the setup, like the network setup that we were going to do, a monolithic application. Everything is modularized, right? That's where I came up with that word I told you yesterday.
Yep.
But when it also comes to this, so, and this was, when we first started talking about this before Programming Club, one of the ways that I was going and mentioning it is that we have a spa app that the students connect to, which would in turn connect to a back-end application. Back-end applications, like the way that, once you go through my Web Programming 1 class, if you go through my Web Programming 1 class, it starts going in, it's basically right where Professor Briggs, and I know that he's teaching everybody that's doing intro to web page right now, because I gave him the whole idea. If you guys heard of the whole pizza, like, did you talk to them about that yet? Because I know somebody mentioned to me that about Ajax.
Oh, that analogy, yeah.
Yes.
I used it during class.
Yes. So he was looking for an analogy to go and basically break up the sides of a web application. All right.
Okay.
So you have a client side and you have a server side.
Yep.
Okay. What the server side does is ultimately why a server is called a server. It is serving up content in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
In the Web 3.0 world, what you're ultimately doing is making just web services, and you have basically a web service API that any type of front end can call upon using AJAX calls, for instance, to go and, like, if you end up connecting with your iPhone, now ultimately, if we were to actually make the app itself, we are going to have to use some sort of, and this is for Android, some sort of UI that connects to your ADK, your Android development kit, right?
Okay.
Because ultimately, yes, that is a form of Java. However, you still need to make your UI. Your UI differs from an application than if you are to go onto a site.
Correct.
In fact, anymore, if you go and you take a look, if there is an app available, they say go to the app instead. Okay?
Yes.
At one point, way back when I was going and doing this, because like I did Ajax when there wasn't libraries. Okay? You actually needed to know how to go and connect Ajax, like make your Ajax calls to call back to the server to get your data. Right? But ultimately what you're doing is you're making multiple entry points, but you're still storing the same type of data. It doesn't matter if you're using an app. It doesn't matter if you're using a PC. It doesn't matter if you're using a watch. If you make a watch app that just says A, B, C, or D, it doesn't matter.
Data is data, screen's a screen, process is processor. Doesn't matter.
Because if you remember what I said at the beginning of programming 1, data is just the raw alphanumeric characters stored. It has not been analyzed or organized in some way, shape, or form to be able to basically come to a conclusion or a consensus.
It's not meaningful yet.
Exactly. That's why that is what information is, and that's where, as programmers and stuff, we are supposed to live, is turning that data into information. Okay. I wasn't trying to hijack your stuff, especially.
You're good.
It's late. And little quick update. Did you get my email afterwards? I didn't see it before. So did you end up doing it during that?
I'm gonna do it after this.
Okay, you're cool. I have your paperwork. I just need to sign it. So we're good there. That's just my quick little updates. I'm gonna run to my office and grab something really quick because I know that I'm gonna be talking soon.
Okay. So now that we got our use case defined, long-term data tracking to highlight student understanding over their time at the curriculum. So what this should represent is a solid trend based on a Gaussian curve. You know what that is, right?
No.
No.
Bell curve.
Okay.
Bell curve. Most students fall on a bell curve. So your single deviation is 68% of your population, and then deviations after that become increasingly rare. So students, if you get 2 peaks, you got a problem, right? So tracking that data long term, we can just pull up a graph, and that should look like this, right? And when it doesn't, we got a problem. So it's either we're not teaching well enough, or we're bringing in a lot of students that simply can't handle it, right? Which we're not going to have a Gaussian curve because our freshman data is going to look like this. Whereas people got it, people don't got it. And then over time, like junior, senior level, I really expect a Gaussian curve. But that data is going to help us figure out what is actually going on. Okay? And then on top of that, if someone's struggling and they're trying and it's like, okay, here's all the things that people struggle with normally, let's hammer these home and get you to the place where you need to be. Okay, so you have a couple guys over here that they're just chilling and watching my thing because they're waiting for you, but they're definitely interested in your project. Do you need the projector?
No, I do not.
Okay.
If you want, I can take over this room really quick, because I'm sure what I'm basically going to cover is going to be something similar to what you're currently doing, which ultimately, if we're going to do any of these projects, what we have to do before yes, I'm taking a couple of steps ahead just to make sure that I know it's feasible to either divvy out, or I'm going to have to end up taking the reins and doing it, like in general as far as that's concerned. But all of these projects should be starting, and has anybody taken system analysis and design yet? Okay. That's where they should be starting. Okay? So yes, we can talk, right now what we're doing is we're talking about the projects, but it is a requirements gathering exercise, what we are currently doing, all right? Because we will have to go back, and I do want us to do a feasibility assessment. However, obviously some of the feasibility, like the biggest thing of the why when you're going and actually doing your project, that the why is because we're a programming club, right? Like, so that's where
Because
our
of
feasibility is swaying, it's being biased, ideally. Like,
or you acknowledge that this project isn't going to be to the potential it should be, but because of learning requirements, we're still going to do it.
exactly. Like, how many people here have played around with Arduino or Raspberry Pi? I mean,
Me.
because Because yeah, I don't think any of these students. I didn't realize
Yeah.
Professor Burke was it in? Because I know that Professor Keeney told me that way back when in programming 1 or 2,
Yeah.
there was a big unit that was just like Arduino and actually programming.
Yeah, that was mine. That was programming too.
So that would have been for Professor Burke.
Bird. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was C# for like the first 9 weeks, and like, okay, we're done with the curriculum. Let's do Arduino now. Okay.
There's so much cooler things that I could show you. That's why I'm really looking forward to our independent study with OOP, because I'm gonna actually get beyond the normal. Here, let's do this.
Yeah.
Get to do multi-threading.
I mean, it was still cool. I did G-force data on my bike for a little Arduino. I just strapped it to the back of the bike, and yeah,
That's cool. That's
it is cool.
That's what Arduino is for. And just because we're doing it in a foosball table, like the bigger reason why I chose the foosball table is because it is more of a PR gatherer.
It's something to point at. It was like, oh, this is sweet.
You don't have to have any real skill. It is a public symbol, because for the people that do know me, yes, my close personal like BFF that I went to high school with, that consulting project I'm working on, he is basically the manager over all those other engineers, mechanical engineers, for the R&D department. My dad was a mechanical engineer. His dad, who was based before he passed away, who I would always hang out with them, he was basically like a dad to me. He was a mechanical engineer. So I go and I focus on computer stuff basically as a virtual version of mechanical engineering. All right, that's why I know stupid amounts of information in very weird areas of IT. Okay? But anybody that does want to work on this, we can go over there. I don't have as much formal presentation, but we can actually start going and basically requirements gathering. That's why I did actually grab this.
Yeah. I'm doing the same thing, just different flavor.
Because, like I said, at this point, our projects are basically in parallel. We're going to go and we're going to figure out what our qualitative and quantitative goals are. At some point, we will create a work breakdown schedule, and mine will be obviously way more complex than yours, but because we'll have physical things to do on top of the IT portion of things to do, because like Professor Briggs has previously stated, probably the more simpler way of looking at this, the data portion is the real non-challenging part of this. There's a lot more moving parts that are going on with mine.
Yeah.
But there's a method behind my madness, because there's lots of projects that you'll get that have lots of moving parts. And at the end of the day is what you were asking me yesterday. Well, was it that I considered myself
Made it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what my response to him was, I'll let you know once I've gotten there. But
It'll never happen.
But at the same time, the things that you learn are persistence. Not giving up on a project. I mean, especially you were talking about pen testing with me. Okay?
Yeah. Trial and error.
You just keep going on and on. Yeah, some of it will be going from a script, but others you need to have knowledge of, like stupid knowledge like I have. Okay, well if you connect it like this, and this, okay, if you do that.
Yep. And I said it in a different way yesterday. You're playing by their rules. You're just doing what they didn't expect you to do.
Yeah, and honestly, the biggest thing that you'll end up pen testing is it's more often than not, it'll be the social engineering aspect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know that's
that was the big email chain going between the professors earlier this semester about students clicking on that stupid phishing thing of, hey, we're going to go and disable your account from inactivity. Right there, your mind should go,
Come on.
how
Yeah.
Come on.
you can, I mean, you connect to almost everything with your, if you've gone to Blackboard, then your Alfred State account is not inactive, obviously, right? So
That's on the level of your social security number is disabled.
the only one that I've joked about actually giving money to was I read one and it was this Nigerian astronaut has been stuck in space since 1989. Okay. And, however, he's been getting paid, and it's been active duty pay because he's been stuck in outer space, right? Honestly, I liked it because it really boiled down to, if you've listened to David Bowie's Space Oddity, there's like Major Tom on the ground, and then he's just gotten stuck in outer space. He's been hanging out there since the late 80s, right? If you end up giving him, I think it's like 15 grand, then he'll easily turn around because his bank account, like he knows about his bank account, is well over 26 mil from all of the active duty pay he's been collecting on top of the interest. So if you end up going and giving him some money, then in return, they'll go and they'll reimburse you that set amount. And honestly, like as far as that story was concerned, I almost wanted to like give that. It basically reminded me of the if anybody's watched South Park, where it was Free Wilsiak, basically the guys joking around at SeaWorld that the giant killer whale was actually from the moon. So they ended up going and basically joining PETA and running down to NASA, the Mexican, instead of NASA, NASA, because they asked him how much it would cost to go and send Wilsiak up into outer space, and it was going to cost them, what was it, 200, and they're like, 200 what? And they're 200 pesos or something like that, so it's like $5.
Yeah.
So they go and they drop off Wilsiak, and they're all like, oh yeah, we freed him, like all the PETA people, and then they launch the rocket up into outer space. You're like, oh my god! And they watch this. So every time, if you've watched any type of South Park after that, there's a whale that just sits there dead on the moon. But that's where that story really kind of reminded me of. This is just random astronauts hanging out since the 80s. Not part of the space station or nothing. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm giving you money because I like your creativity.
Yeah, that's basically what I was about to say. Good story. Thanks for the line.
Good story. Oh wow.
Okay, so who's wanting to work on this? Just
It's the I have a separate question.
okay.
Where would you have time? Would you be able to set up a time where you can talk about multi-threading?
Multi-threading.
Oriented programming?
So if I was to talk about multi-threading now, what I would ultimately end up going and talking about would be asynchronous processes, because ultimately, and this is the way I learned multi-threading and parallel processing and stuff like that, honestly, was with asynchronous processes. Because just the term multi-threading or parallel processing, all that, can be like, oh my god, what are, like, you're going to be actually using the hardware on your laptops, like putting it through its reins. So if I were to talk about it, it would be in the form of asynchronous processes via web instances. Okay, and usually what that boils down to would be automation processes and different things like that. So if you're wanting more of a like a lab, like I would give an OOP, like what hopefully she'll be getting, then you need give me the weekend, and then I can give you areas to go to look at parallel processing. Okay. But on that note, please also So I'm not going and basically making you drink from a fire hose, because I know often than not I learned from Professor Enke, and a lot of the times when he's explaining things, that's how it turns into. That's why he does a lot of tutorials where I still am trying to give you a drink from the fire hose, but I'm still trying to tell you as your jaw's blowing off, hey, it's supposed to be like this. Anyway, anybody that wants to do this,
Yeah.
just okay.
Yeah, Dylan, you should be a part of that if you're going to primarily contribute to that, because you have to know what's going on. So you can watch the video. It's getting recorded now, and then I'm screen capturing here, so you'll be all right with that. And then anyone that wants to primarily contribute to this, and as a good learning experience, it makes you think, right? Because you got to deal with the physical and the software world. All right, that's a good project to have.
Okay, you can bring your laptop. All right, we're going to the other lab.
All right, so, well, I'm a little behind schedule now. So features, so we got yeah, we got to get through goals, scope. Okay. So design. Actually, we need to get back to your comment like a half hour ago. I forgot. What? Okay. It might come back up. So what we're going to have to talk about now, so we got our use case. We officially know what our goal is. Our primary goal is to make sure that we have enough data to be able to track students over time, how they're actually performing within the curriculum. Because ultimately our goal is to teach you as much as possible in 4 years. Because I think it's ridiculous that some of you guys are walking out of here like just barely knowing how to tie your shoes programming wise, and we wasted 4 years of your life. I think that's ridiculous. So how do we optimize the time that we actually have? And that's part of the reason why in Intro to Web, I throw you guys like, here's the fire.
Yes.
There you go. Because you're going to learn so much more that way. And then, hey, however you perform is how you get graded, right? But we need more data where we can go, okay, you guys really, really struggled with Ajax the other day because you didn't understand client-server relationship. Okay, well.
I mean, I understood it, but I just couldn't.
That sounds like not understanding.
What? Well, no, I mean the program.
I understand it, but I just couldn't do it.
Well, no, from the programming part. Like, I mean, Like, I know how it's talking, like, hey, three-way handshake and all. Like, that I get. I just, like, I didn't know how to tell it. Like, I could tell the words, but I wasn't
Moving on. Anyways, so this is where we probably shouldn't do design first. So we should narrow down our scope now. So what's the scope? What are we trying to accomplish? We got our use case, but how big of a scope do we want? Okay?
So is this kind of like audience? Is this similar to audience? Or we're looking at design scope?
Well, I'm going to give you one hint.
Okay.
Right? Because we're going to have multiple. It's technically one scope, but there's multiple aspects to it. So if I come over here and I go,
Oh, okay.
okay, there's one. So we can have subscopes within that. So what's a subscope? What is a set of data that's going to help us achieve that primary use case, that primary goal?
Sorry, in the use cases.
The grade or the marks in the text, that is how we report. Like, what type of data?
So if we're tracking grades, how are we going to grade? This is the conversation we got to have. What's our data? What are we tracking?
Yes, okay. So like, are you talking about what grades in the data set?
That's the question. Do you want it from our software? Do you want it from Blackboard? Do you want it from the school? What do you want?
Cumulative of all of them, because it matters, because someone might be, the Blackboard tests are usually set by the professor, so up to the standards.
Mhm.
But if you're doing it by the software, like Cengage quizzes, those are relatively easy to the Blackboard ones.
Mhm.
So like if you want to combine both of them, because I don't think we should grade them on the basis of only one, because that does not determine the students.
Okay. So first thing we got to talk about is we have no access to Blackboard. Okay. But I like where you're thinking, where you're going, okay, we could use this, we could use this, we could use this. The next question is, can we get it? The answer is no. All right. So one of the things you can do is, okay, we think Blackboard grades is critical. Can we not manually enter it? Can we not give them a web page that goes, this person, this grade? Can we not do that?
Well, that depends. I mean, how many teachers? Right, like, or are you doing
If you're talking about from a usability standpoint, yeah, that's a question you got to ask. If you have 120 students, I'm not entering all your grades.
Yeah, no way.
Sorry. I'm hardly going to enter your name in, let alone all your grades for each and everything you do. It's not happening. What? Well, we got to talk about laws as well, because there are privacy laws that we have to consider. So if we keep it here and it goes nowhere, we don't have to worry about it as much. As soon as it goes outside of this network, we got to worry about data laws. Okay? So one of the arguments I wanted to project, and then I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on it, was we can represent our curriculum through questions of this software. If we are making a better Kahoot, then we can control the difficulty of the questions and the scope, and we have control of that. So we can just make better questions, right? And then if you do something like I'm doing in class, where here's this test, have everyone compete on it, I'm having everyone do this, and it's study habits for you guys, because I know you're not going to study unless there's a test, and I don't give tests. So you're not going to study. I understand how students work, right? So there's that factor, because I think tests are dumb. For programming, I think they're dumb. Why does it matter if you know what 3 ampersands means or not? Google it. Why does it matter if you know the difference or seen that I didn't put an S in for get elements by class name instead of get element by ID? Why does that matter? I don't think it does, right? And a lot of Cengage is all about that.
Oh my God, it's all of them. Literally, it's
yeah, right? But they're tied to their scope, where they're going, okay, we have to make this artificially difficult so people actually understand it. But this is all we got to do. So they're memorizing syntax, and you can ask any programmer, don't memorize syntax, Google it.
But you just remember it because you do it a lot of times.
And that's the threshold, right? If you look it up 50 times, you're going to remember it eventually, right? Why are you worrying about it? And that's part of the reason why some of you guys in class are like, how do you know all this? Is because I've done it 10,000 times. And then I also try to do them real time, where I go, yeah, I forgot about this, Google. Trying to get you guys to the point is like, yeah, the professor still Googles too, right? I'm not this magic man that's memorized everything and I've mastered this thing called JavaScript. It doesn't work like that, right? At your guys' level, yeah, I've done it 5,000 times. But as soon as we get outside even a little bit, like today, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a thing, and it came up with nothing. So, okay, so we are tracking grades, but with questions in the software. So I think that's important. Okay? So another scope element that we have to talk about is for how long. So are we defining it by class? Are we defining it by the entire curriculum? Are we defining it by semester?
I think curriculum, because our use case is about, I don't want to say AI, but it's about having, no, I think it would be AI. It's about having the program understand that certain concepts are harder than others. I don't know how we would do that. I mean, roughly speaking.
No, we're talking about concepts. We'll figure out technicalities later.
Yeah, but I think we will keep it to the curriculum, and then we're just going to have it.
So,
By curriculum, for all time.
okay, you're thinking curriculum. Anyone else?
I mean, a semester would be a good choice too.
Okay.
But like, if we are going to, because like programming is going to be not just one time, but the whole curriculum basically. So I suppose they forget something at the point that we just show them the question again to see if they're memorizing it, then probably it won't work in semesters.
I feel like it's also not a bad idea to go outside of the curriculum because there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know that's outside of the curriculum that like we don't get taught.
So you guys are diving into features again.
Okay.
But I agree with you, and I would even raise you and say we need by course, by topic, by semester, and then by curriculum. So how are you progressing on all of those scopes? Okay, so if someone is struggling on this very tight topic, and this is the only thing, okay, well, just double down on two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so if they come in and say, I'm struggling with the game of life, and you know from class that from this test that they have no idea what two-dimensional arrays are, well, the first thing you should be doing is, this is a two-dimensional array. So before you even try the game of life, you need to understand two-dimensional arrays. Okay? Okay, so let's go back to features because you guys had good ones. So progressive learning. One of the things that you said is, hey, over time, we still need to visit these questions.
The thing I was talking about earlier was it about Quizlet?
What about it? Yeah, something about Quizlet.
I think it was like the students can like pick the date of their test, and then it'll like determine how much information they give on their like how they study.
Self-learning based on deadline. Okay? What else? So we understand our use case, we understand our scope. What features do we need to accomplish those things?
Like features are basically like elements over here. So like if we cover the tracking one, we cover the revision one, so those kind of features.
So by reversion.
Like by revision, by like self-learning based on deadline. Or like, sorry, to have self-study questions based on a learning algorithm.
Yeah.
So that is revision.
Yeah.
Because they're just revising topic based in a certain time and threshold.
Yeah, I agree with you. One feature that I think is critically important for the people that are going to be using this, time to release of questions. And the reason for this is as you go through a course, the more time you spend in that course, the more topics you've covered. And most of the time, 1 week, 1 chapter type people, right? So if you know it's 1 week, 1 chapter, then you can create your questions based on a topic. And once that topic has hit that deadline where you know that you've covered it, then release it into the question pool.
Okay.
Okay?
I think I remembered what I said.
And what was that?
It was the like how students are different learners. So like some of them are like auditory, some of them are like they like to see like a visual. Like I know some people that they need to be like read to if they're like taking a test or something, because like if they're reading it, they can't comprehend it, but if they hear it, they can.
Okay, so we got that. We got progressive learning. So we're definitely missing a few in here. Relapse. There you go. Time to release the questions, add support for pictures, add support for auto-reading text. So over here, progressive learning we need, because we've already talked about it, is auto-generated test. And we're going to put this down and give this another subtopic to self-study. And then class generated. Okay, so now we got to start talking about the testing function itself. So what do we like out of Kahoot, first of all? What are the things that we're going to take?
Instantly, the first thing that's designed is having class, you were able to test this all at once. And another thing was it actually went by not by correct answer, but by time, which is what we were talking about before. Too, I don't know if it's a feature. It's like kind of like.
That's something you want to fix, right?
Well, no, I think it was a good, and I think it was pretty decent because if someone really knew it, they would instantly learn it.
But you're also creating more error, and we're also not trying to make a competition. We're doing this for learning. So if you want to compare yourself to other people, I agree with you, because then that gives you the ability to go, everyone got this question right, I got it wrong. That's going to hit a lot of psychological nerves going, I need to learn this.
Okay.
Right? And then, particularly for like your freshmen, where they go, here's a big group over here, here's a big group over here. If I'm over here, I might not belong. Right? Because a lot of people join these majors thinking they're going to get a payday.
That's true.
Right? And they don't want to put the time and effort in.
What about a game-based learning platform? That is a game-based learning platform, so that is something good about it. So like, that is again on the competitive side, so interactive learning platform.
Yeah, so that's something we're going to have to think about if we can come up with a good idea how to gamify, essentially, either competing with yourself or competing with these mystical people, which we can generate from old student data. Like, are you progressing? Yeah, are you above average type of idea? And when we get more data, then it'll become more accurate. So I like that idea. We can try to do that.
I also like how we had like a streak thing, because you're like, oh, like I'm actually doing this. Like if you're like answering a lot of questions in a row, it'll show you that like, oh, I'm actually like doing.
Okay, right answer streak. This one, yeah, let's not put that under testing. Not yet, at least. Okay, right answer streak, not based on time. Right answer. Okay. I'm not in love with the podium thing at the end of Kahoot. Again, we're trying to get people where you can go, okay, I'm weak on these particular topics. Okay. What I want as a professor is to go, here's the spread, right? Here's how people actually did. Here's the average. If we calculate, if this was a test, here's the average. Here's the topics that people don't understand, right? I need the feedback going, okay, what do people not understand? Okay. So topics, right? Answer, wrong, answer. Class spread. By topic. Overall. Okay, so there's that. Features, group testing, right answers. We need, so if we come down here, we're missing question generation. Okay, there's that. I would like some keyboard function. Because when I've been using Kahoot lately, it drives me nuts that I have to use the mouse for everything. There's that. So you said something, it was Sarah that wanted image support.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll put those there as well.
I don't know if it goes in here, but instead of the shapes having them be letters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That idea.
What's up?
I'm giving this to you before I. That should be all I need to do for you. Just sign it.
I
Keyboard
also
functionality.
need a written document by you, like what do you want, what do you expect from this independent study? Because that's like the instructor makes it.
Okay, I'll have to ask Professor Inky.
You can ask that, or even Professor Keeney said if you want help with that, because he has made so he can send you a sample. It's just like saying that.
Sure, if you want, shoot Professor Keeney
I can
a
do that.
message.
Yes, because he just told me like if you want me to give it to peers, then just let me know. And it's just like that we will meet like once a week, and like the class will cover this, and they have the basic understanding and that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Send that to me, and I will try not to go and completely with it all. I think documentation. I'll program.
Okay, week-based time release. So as you're going through the curriculum, automatically release questions so they can be learned. Boy, I feel like I'm missing stuff, but we're running out of time. So we got to talk about, okay, goal is baked into scope and use case. So we got to talk about design now. So design, what don't we like about Kahoot?
From the app or from the website?
Either.
Well, the website's awful. The website's just awful. I hate how there's no default color scheme. It seems there's just too much stuff on the page. It frustrates me when I look at
Okay, so at the college level, with young adults and adults using this, what do you think would be an appropriate design theme?
Just a bland color.
Well, yes.
A blue?
Well, we could do blue, yeah.
Huh?
Like a dark blue to light blue, nothing like too bright or contrasting. Yeah. Because I feel like those type of websites it's just too flashy and then you don't want to like browse through and see stuff. Like how blue it has like kind of a dark theme and like
Yes,
so it's like the same way.
Okay, so I'm hearing minimalistic.
100%.
More-
Less stuff on the page.
So we can do minimalistic, but we need to start talking about color psychology at this point because there are particular colors that help people learn and
I
focus.
think it's blue, right?
It's orange.
Is it really orange?
Huh? Orange and white. So this is where we got to start talking about precedences and precedences. So Quizlet, yes, it's blue and white, but they're doing it for a different reason because the other option is blue. And the reason why they do that is because blue has a calming effect. So if you're cramming for a test, it's better for you to be calm and study than freaking out that you have a test in 6 hours. Right? What we're trying to do is create a habit because if I, the professor, is showing you this information as we go, I'm teaching you good study habits anyways.
Yes.
Right? So you don't need that blue psychology. So you want orange for energy and focus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think orange would be the way.
Okay, so there's a couple orange sites that I know exist and have been done well. Striva is one of them. It's a fitness app. There's another one. There's a shoe brand. Brooks? Brooks. I was on there recently. I forgot. But, yeah, we need to start talking about precedences. But ideally, we should probably think about a minimalistic minimum design. This needs to be as automated as possible. The reason for this is because a lot of professors, they fill up their time with things like this, like programming club. So adding extra time where I have to fill in your grades is not going to happen, okay? Because it's just not worth my time. All right? If I can automate it, if I'm going to make questions, I don't want to make them every semester. I want to do that once. And then I want those things released as time goes on. Again, automated. We have time, right? It's going to be in milliseconds, but we have time. We can base it off of something. So if we know what a week is and we pick say it's Friday at midnight, we're going to release these questions. Then make it Friday at midnight, just automate it, right? If I know it's going to take me 2 weeks to get through HTML, okay, pick a starting point, which would be the semester. When does the semester start? When does the semester end? Based on that semester start point, whatever 1 week is in milliseconds, like 86,000, I think, something like that. 1 week. Once you hit that threshold, if it's above this number, release these questions. And you keep doing it again and again for 15 weeks. The other thing we got to be able to do is alter those times. So if I think, hey, I need to spend more time on HTML, let's bump it up to 3 weeks. Well, we need to be able to have a drop down to say release in 3 weeks or weeks 3 of the semester. Right? I think that'll be a little bit more understandable for a professor going release at week 3 instead of being like April 4th. I don't think that'd be successful. Okay? Automated as possible, minimum design. Okay, this is where we got to start talking about precedences. Okay, who knows what a precedence is? I'm disappointed in you, Logan. How many times have I talked about this? Yes! In terms of web design. Well, precedence as a word, what does it mean as a word? Previous. What has come before?
Yes.
Okay, so how do we use that for web design?
The foundation, the structure of the layout.
I like your effort, but what?
Guide the user, like visually.
Not quite, no. No, a precedence is where you go to other websites that have done this before, and you go, what have they done well? What have they done well? Right? Because they have run into problems that you haven't thought of yet. Right? This is why I said better Kahoot. Okay, our starting point is Kahoot. We need to make it better for our use case. Right? For the elementary school, like 5th grade thing, we're not competing with Kahoot. It's not happening. Right? They got like a 10-year head start. It's not happening. But I don't know of any software that focuses on college level, because there's a bunch of professors that think that you need to do all the work, right? I'm going to sit up here and go, this is my PowerPoint, this is my point, here's your homework, ask questions when you need them, right? There's a bunch of professors like that, and I am sort of like that, but I at least try to give you examples where it's just like, here, follow along, I'll show you how to do this. But there is a point where you got to do it yourself, right? So precedence. Strava. Kahoot. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so is there any others that we are missing right offhand? What is in the relative scope of what we're trying to do? Just questions. So we obviously got Quizlet and Kahoot. There's some other garbage apps out there, but garbage is the key word.
We could actually look at them and see what they did wrong.
I don't think it's going to help us a lot, because if we're starting at Kahoot, which we consider is pretty good,
Oh, I see. So
then there's not much value in seeing what's wrong. This is where we can start talking about color and then taking other people's ideas. I like that. Too much. That's okay, but there's a gradient here, so there's a performance penalty. So you got a high resolution photo and a very low gradient. I don't like that at all. And this is where we go, okay, we have a handful of these things. What is going on? So when we're talking about UX and usability, if I, as a professional, that I focus on HCI, and I land on your page and I go, what is going on? You're doing it wrong. Full screen? I don't like this at all. Okay, so let's focus on the design itself. We got full row, 3. This is kind of like a hybrid between a 3 column and a full row. I don't like it though. You need to pick. So you can do a full row, 3, 3, 3, and then a full row for the footer. But this thing down here where you have a bunch of images, which I can't really, okay, better. Okay, free standard shipping, like, what is this? Custom t-shirts. I guess, but no. Like, don't do, well, I guess you could, but,
What does Microsoft have to do with t-shirts?
they probably printed t-shirts for Microsoft,
Oh.
which that's basically them going, we're awesome, we did it for all these companies. Yeah. So I don't like this at all, and I don't think I'm going to take any elements. Maybe these orange circle button things. I don't think so though. So there's that. Let's try this. Full screen. Zoom.
The top looks good. I like
Okay, I do like this extended card thing. And I like this, where you have your orange contrast. Okay, so this, I'm going to use this as another precedence, another precedent. I do like this one. I don't like this, where this pattern is fighting with these buttons. Because again, if you've been in my intro to web class, we've talked a lot about how people look at things and go, okay, this is the image they're expecting. How you actually presenting it is no different than that icon that was transparent during one of the projects, and it was supposed to be the Twitter icon.
Oh, God, yes,
Yeah.
That was, yes.
So I'm going to copy this URL, and then I'm going to go back into this, and then I'm just going to, well, I guess that works. There's that. Let's look at this other one. Full screen, office summer up here. Maybe. I don't like this at all. This really squished extra line hamburger menu. No. This extra blurry background photo. This picture quite literally looks like they're hammered, had too many cocktails, and they're like, oh, I forgot to take a picture for my client. Yeah. Yeah.
It's due tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Choose your summary event. So again, this with the misspelling, if I catch it, you're doing it wrong. Okay. Choose your summary event. Capital letters is really, really hard to read, and even more so when there's not a lot of contrast here, and even more so when you have this orange bar that has a lot of contrast. I completely skipped this text, 100%. And then I got to this tennis thing. I was like, what's going on? On top of that, this see more thing, which I'm assuming this is supposed to be a hover effect. Yeah. Let's not. Okay. Okay, so how does this work? How does it work? Choose your event, choose your venue.
That's okay compared to the rest of the page. That's pretty.
I mean, sure.
I mean, relatively to the top, 100%.
Again, I think this is supposed to be a hover effect down here. I don't see where this has value. So if you guys get into the HCI field, you're going to see this a lot, where they're just going to go because it's pretty, and they're going to throw it in. And the first thing I'm going to ask is, what value does it provide? right? Because all of this, okay, this might be, let's say 20 KB worth of images. And then this layout is going to have to be calculated, and then these buttons are going to have active listeners on them. Okay, so you have a download penalty, you have a layout penalty, and then you have a listener penalty, which is going to be the biggest one. For what reason? So as soon as you start talking about performance, you got to go, okay, why is it there? All right. This text versus this text has a proportion problem. Golden ratio on this. Blurry picture again. Well, it's not awful.
No.
Like these are.
No, it's not that. I mean, they got an A+ in Intro to Web.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where I would actually have a gradient here, completely transparent from here to about here, and then make it really dark back here so you don't have this conflicting background on these. Anyways, latest news.
That's a bad background.
I'm less worried about the background. I mean, it's not helpful.
It's not helping.
Like I would make this orange to fit the theme, and keep this white card, give it a little bit more padding, and then have these buttons the same as these ones. Okay, so there are some things. No, I lied. There's nothing I like about this. Not for us. Okay, so we have 3 precedences that we can work with. So at this point, because I officially went way over time budget, we have to come up with a prototype now. We got a general feature set. Actually, there's one more thing we got to talk about. Okay. Yep. We need a prototype. Okay? So all these features that have long-term consequences about, hey, we have a bunch of these questions and they're going to automatically be released and we're going to track this over, the entire semester, and then we're going to have this random data set. Well, I don't want to say random, but it's data that we need over the long term is going to be put over here. That's going to be anonymized data. We don't need any of that to see if this actually works or not. Okay, because there's technical challenges built into here to see if it's feasible. So we have to determine what features do we need for the MVP for us to test a prototype. Basic question generation. Okay. Basic, I'm going to say class testing, because self-testing is going to be an add-on feature for your hyper-motivated students, which is going to be like 5, right? So that's a feature that's not going to be used, so we're not going to include it for the MVP. Okay, so we got basic question generation, basic class testing, auto-gen testing. Okay, so hey, click this button, create a test. Professor doesn't know which order, and that's another thing I don't like about Kahoot. It goes in order, so you guys are going to start memorizing that almost immediately. Okay. Oh, we can make that another feature as well. Testing, question generation. Here we go. How do I put this? Same but different answers. So I'm asking a question, you have all these answers, I just rephrase the answer so it forces you to read instead of just go, I know it's this, right? We can do that with a question as well. And I'm going to put a note over here.
I feel like that's also a problem with Quizlet because the answers and questions are all the same, so you get to a point where you're just memorizing the question and the answer, you're not actually learning it.
Yeah, you see like the structure of the answer and then just know exactly what it is.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a problem with learning in general. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make, and a lot of students do this, is that they reread their notes and they reread the text. And you get to a point where it's just like, I've already read this 5 times, I know it. And then you get to the test and you go, okay, I don't know how to answer this in a question answer format. So then they go to Quizlet and then they go, okay, question answer. And especially if they made the question and they made the answer, then it's like, okay, yeah, I remember doing this. So if we can change it a bit, so what the professor is going to have to do is, here's a question, and then have like 3 variants of asking that same question. So if I go, what is HTML? Well, the other aspect of that might be, what structure, what markup language do we use? What?
Hypertext. I think it's HTML, so it's hypertext markup language. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with that. I was going to be really disappointed in you.
oh no.
Okay, it's like, what is HTML? And it's going to be a markup language. And then the other way is, what markup language do we use? HTML, right? It forces you to go both ways. And then we can add a third version of that of which markup language do we use in class? And then I'll give you a bunch of them where it's YAML or XML and then you're going to be like, okay, the only one I've ever heard of is HTML. So I'm going to pick that one. But that is at least better than, because now you've heard of YAML. Now you've heard of XML. Right? And there's like 30 markup languages. Did you know that? Just saying.
And it was like HTML, whatever it is. It's like, that's the only one, the other one, because I was going to do my website critique on, or my topic analysis on it, and I was like, you know what, as I was doing research on it, I'm like, I'm just going to do it then this year. I'm not gonna,
Yeah. So there's that. Let's change that to why. Stop it. Question. There's that. So how did I get distracted? We're up here, AutoGen testing. And this is, I'm going to add the main technical challenge here. Actually, no, we'll poll. So there is a protocol that I have never used that has server-side events, which is going to throw you, and you for a loop, because it completely inverts how we usually do things, right? So we got to get through that. I've never used it, but it doesn't seem that hard. It's just every single version of those protocols have a massive trade-off. So which trade-off do you want? So I'm out of time. I don't have time to present because that would take like an hour. So I'll give you some of the highlights of that presentation. So particularly for you 3, because you just went over this, asynchronous functions. So you do something, you wait for something to happen, and then a listener comes back and it fires, and then you got to do something else. That in general is more efficient on a single thread than having a single executable thread wait for everything. Okay? Where Spear and I differ, because he is fully in the Java does everything realm, there's a lot of performance benefits to using Node.js or any other asynchronous language for web typical task. So your web typical task is, I'm going to, say, Ilford State. I'm going to log in. That can be an asynchronous task. I need my grades, asynchronous task. And all that is IO based. So I need this data that is stored on the database. Connecting to a database and getting information from the database takes a long time, relatively speaking, in computer speak. So that time that you're waiting on that process to execute, which might be 5 milliseconds, well, most tasks take nanoseconds. So why not do those 1,000 other tasks while we're waiting for the database call to come back? So Node.js scales really, really well. And YouTube uses it, Netflix uses it. Any streaming service pretty much uses it because there's nothing else quite like Node.js right now. Where you would use Java for web is when you start going Photoshop online. Here's a bunch of calculations. Here's a bunch of thread-oriented things where we can actually use all the threads, because Node can use threads. It's just not very efficient at it. All right? And I'll go over that presentation more next time. But what I'm expecting from you guys is we need a design in Figma with these features by next Friday. Now, with that said, it might be beneficial for all of you to get together and do one. So one person does one page in Figma. Yeah, in Figma, not code, in Figma, right? And I'm going to do one as well. All right, so we can start going in those directions. I do not want to use my design, but if something happened where you guys, like, we had all these projects, we couldn't, we need to still continue. So I'm going to spend a little time on it. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a ClickUp account for us. It is very much like Monday.com. And then we will have a bunch of micro tasks as they come up. So an example, we'll give Sarah here is like, Sarah, we need visual feedback on buttons that click on this particular page. So click the button, it turns green. Like, that would be a task for you, because I know you're struggling with JavaScript at the moment. So that would be a task for you, right? And then a more advanced task, which would be, we need this form data error checked, right? That'd be something for you. What? Yeah. Have you done error checking before?
I mean, I've not done it like that, but I have practiced a program in Java with that. So I don't know how to do that. Like, I know, I can see that. But like, because in high school we did a lot of stuff in Java, so that was one of the things. So like, many different kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, so that it'd be in JavaScript.
Wait, I don't know. Okay.
Because it's going to be client-side error checking, right? Okay. So anything that's client-side is going to be JavaScript. It's not Java. Backend, we still need to talk about technology-wise. Do we want to do it in PHP or JavaScript or .NET or Django, Python? What do we want to do? Python.
I mean, seems the most easiest, or we could do PHP too, because that's completely understandable. Stuff like that. I don't know, but Python. I don't know. I've only done Python and PHP.
Yeah. Here's some benchmarks.
Not Python.
I mean, you can do it in Python, right?
I've just seen that. Doesn't look good.
The reason why I showed you this is because a lot of developers do this. They go, I've only worked in Node.js, or not Node.js, but PHP and Python, and then they're just like, I'm good with Python. When you start talking about performance and scalability, you got to be able to go, what is the tool for the job? So if I come down here versus Java, takes twice as long for 500 prime numbers. Over 70 threads, it takes almost twice as long, 500 prime numbers and 70 threads and 8 nodes. Oh, for blocking I/O calls, it's 3 times faster, 800% faster. Now a mixed workload, still faster.
Wow.
Do you get the point? Use the tool for the job.
Use the tool for the, so that's what you mean.
Tools, not rules. So if I come up here, PHP.
Wow.
Now look at what those tests are. Concatenating strings. Adding numbers. Why is it better? Don't know. Filling arrays. Reading files. MySQL. So if you're using MySQL, don't use Node, right? It's not the right choice. But if you're doing, because PHP is a synchronous language and you're doing I/O stuff, then use Node. And even more so if you're using something like MongoDB, where it's JSON-based and non-document, or is document-based databases. Tools, not rules. I'm going to say it over and over and over and over again. Tools, not rules. But yeah, I wanted to show you Python because you get into the trap of, I know Python, I like Python, it works, I'm going.
But yeah, that's like, so we'll have to learn that.
Yeah. Now, if you guys want to do it because it is your project, right? If you want to do it in Python and you want to get to that point, sure, we can do Python. And one of the things that's not in this presentation, because this was the one that I was supposed to do today, Golang. That's another one. There is, what's the other, uses Dart. Flutter, there it is. Flutter's a thing. C# would be a pretty decent choice here with .NET. You can go full crazy and do C++. I don't think so for prototype. I don't. If you're hyper optimizing, then maybe. But yeah, this is your project, so you guys are going to have to decide what language you want to use. Obviously, we're not deciding that today. And you look overwhelmed. Yeah. Don't feel bad. Sarah does too.
Oh, I do a lot.
Yeah. But are you guys learning stuff?
Definitely better than the first day. I was freaking out.
Better than the first day? First day of what?
Class.
Oh, yeah.
I was freaking out.
Oh, me too. Oh my god. First days like HTML 1 week, CSS 1 week, rest JavaScript like fuck. Oh my god, my
I
fuck.
didn't get into JavaScript until like last month. And
Yeah.
then last class, that kind of stuff. So I'm like, well, and then they're learning API and stuff like that, which I wanted to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, since I have your attention on that now, do you understand why I did it that way?
Yeah, I do understand. It just scares the shit out of everyone in the first week. It's just no, that first I was terrified. I'm like, I'm just scared.
Right? Because no matter what you do, you have to use all three. You have to use all three. It is not three separate things. You might as well consider it the web.
I
Right.
think so. Cause like, then we got examples, and then we actually have to do like the first project, like that helped a lot. Like understanding everything.
Yeah, and one of the things I think I'm going to do for next semester is have those micro labs that we've been doing just closer to when you actually learned it. Because most of you don't understand the PowerPoint. It's just, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
But how else am I supposed to present it unless you want me to go, here's a thing we're going to do today, pull out your keyboard, which I think more of you will be even more lost.
With that server, with the server.
Yeah.
Stuff that.
Yeah, if I was just like, here's HTML, pull out your laptop.
You said we're gonna do that like a couple more times, right?
What?
We're gonna do like the server stuff a couple more times, like next week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to redo that ROG database again, since you guys understand it slightly more. So you have an understanding that, hey, we got all this JSON data back. This is a server that's not ours. Just understanding what a server is. Right? It's serving you data.
I like how you put it that way, because I would probably not understand it anyway.
I don't know how else to explain it. It's
Like,
serving you data. What's the only other way? Giving data, which is a server. It's called a server for a reason. Yeah, techies aren't that smart, you know. They name things exactly what they do. A router, route. A switch. Exactly. A computer computes.
Yes.
All right. So we're out of time for today. One of the things, is there something that's just easy to show? Oh, this presentation, by the way, this was during senior capstone. I just took it.
your senior capstone?
Yeah.
You give this for your project?
No, I gave this for, hey, you're presenting in a week. I was like, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, promises.
We haven't gone over this. Have we?
You went over the bottom part. Promised out then.
Yeah, not then.
You got them.
Yeah, I'm trying to not melt your brain, as it turns out. Just saying. You're welcome. So here's an example of that working. Step 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah, I forced it to go through promise.then, resolve step 1, which should have taken 3 seconds. So I forced it to run after it resolved, and then step 1, 2, and 3. And then this is walking through how that actually works. So you hit that promise, create it. You hit that timeout. You hit the promise. Promise.then hasn't happened yet, but resolve that promise. And now you can run this. Yeah, went over this yesterday. Async and wait. Look at that. That looks familiar, doesn't it?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Object.object. Dang it. Where have I seen that before? Object promise. Deja vu. That's all I got for today. So I will post in our section of Discord this file, first of all, and it's called Xmine. Second is I'm going to create a ClickUp account for us, and then we'll slowly use it as time goes on. And then I don't know how you guys want to work together, but we need a design, obviously a rudimentary one because we can critique ourselves. So either obviously you two are going to work together. If you want to join them, Sarah, same thing with you, Mike, or if Mike and Sarah want to work together, or I get 3 separate ones, that's fine too, right? Because the more directions that we can come from, the more we can take from yours and yours and yours, and then I'll throw mine in there too. All right? Yeah, I'll see you on Monday.
See you.